Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. My name is Michael Sussman. I'm the Green Party candidate for New York State Attorney General. We're here in Yonkers, New York, the city where I spent 27 years litigating on behalf of the NAACP, because, in fact, school segregation and inequality in education is profoundly affecting all New Yorkers. The most recent statistics issued by the New York State Education Department are nothing short of shocking and a profound condemnation, not only of education in New York, but of our legal system, which has persisted for years in allowing high levels of racial segregation. The vestiges of discrimination and segregation and inequality pervade New York State's education. Some basic statistics are in order to frame the conversation. New York State gives exams each year. They're called ELA exams and math exams for children in grades 3 through 8. Those exams are flawed, no question, and they've been rightly criticized. But the examinations still provide a portrait, a meaningful portrait of the inequality in educational outcomes in New York State and the profound perpetuation of racial disparities in our state. The numbers are shocking. In a city like Rochester, New York, 7% of the students in grades 3 through 8 are rendered proficient. 7% proficiency across the board, grades 3 through 8. Amongst African American students in Rochester, 5% in 2016 proficient, 6% in 2017. Even amongst white students, the numbers are shocking. 18% proficient, 19% proficient. Now, in New York State, there's been long-standing litigation to correct the inequality in school funding. That major litigation has been stymied for years by the New York State political hierarchy. The New York State Attorney Generals, while pronouncing their support for equal educational opportunity, have never chastised the New York State Legislature, the New York State Education Department, those in control to ensure there is in fact equality in educational opportunity, which has been the objective of the campaign for fiscal equity. The results in Buffalo: 11% of African American students proficient, 11% of Hispanic students proficient, 16% of students district-wide proficient. How are we going to compete in international economics, in trade affairs? How are we going to have any resolution of historic poverty rates in our state, in these inner cities, with these rates? The answer is we're never going to. We need leadership in New York which faces the facts, just like we did here in Yonkers. But we had to demonstrate in a 92-day trial, through a truth-telling process, the profound contribution of intentional choices to the racial segregation in this city. It didn't just happen. Just like the data I'm reading and referring to, didn't just happen. And it's time for people in our state, of every group, to be angry and furious about this kind of data. Albany, New York, our state capital, 18% proficiency district-wide on these state tests in 2016. A whopping increase to 19% the next year. Among African Americans, 11% proficiency in each of the years. Among Hispanics, 12% proficiency. This means that roughly 90% of minority students in Albany, New York, are not proficient between grades 3 through 8 in basic math skills, in basic reading skills. How are they going to be prepared to contribute to our society in the future with that kind of record? And what are leaders doing about it? What they're not doing about it is discussing it, which is why we're talking about it here today. In order to have change, we have to come to grips with facts. That's exactly what happened here in this city. It was very painful. It was very difficult. There's a lamppost around the corner here. I was literally chased up that lamppost in 1988 by a crowd of marauding individuals. But that's not the point. The point is, however difficult it is, we have to face the music. We can't ignore these realities. Now, Yonkers, where we invested $300 million between 2002 and 2007, the rates are higher, but they're still shamefully inadequate preparing children for the future. In Yonkers, 26% of the children are proficient in 2016. In 2017, it rose to 30%. But the gap in achievement between African American and other minority students and white students is still great. While 39 and 44% of white students show proficiency, far higher than in other cities. In the African American community, it's still 20 and 23%. Again, much higher than other places, but dismally low. And amongst Hispanics, 22, 25% proficient in reading, a basic skill. So I'm calling today for major changes in the way the state attorney general handles business. We cannot continue to defend practices which are basically discriminatory and will perpetuate the old ways of doing business. It is immoral, it is illegal, it is improper. We have to immediately settle lawsuits which are meritorious on their face and have strong evidentiary support. The Campaign for Fiscal Equity lawsuit is predicated on facts. Facts about the lack of funding for these major city school districts. Buffalo, New York, 11% of African Americans proficient. Hispanics, 11%. Whites, 34%. The gap is significant, but what's more significant is that for all groups, the level of proficiency in these major cities is well below what it is in predominantly white districts, which are heavily funded in the state. So I'm calling today on the Attorney General's office to expeditiously settle this case and put in motion proper funding for school districts around New York State. Yonkers demonstrated between 2002 and 2007, with the significant amount of money that we got for it, that scores can remarkably increase, that the gap can lessen, but we need to put the resources there. We can't ignore the problem. We can't act like it doesn't exist. This is our future. If we want an alternative to the pipeline between our schools and our prisons, the alternative is through proper funding of education in our state. And to the extent anyone in our state opposes that, they have to seriously examine the future they want for our state. Because all we're doing is perpetuating high crime rates, delinquency, inequality. And that's demonstrated by the profound inequality in income throughout our state. The tremendous incarceration rates in our state, which are well beyond the norm even in the United States, which has by far the highest incarceration rate of any civilized country. We're spending our resources in the wrong places. We need to change that. As an independent candidate for Attorney General, proud to be on the Green Party line, I am not beholden to any political boss. I have a 40-year track record as a litigator, a successful litigator in major civil rights cases, not only in New York, but across the United States. None of the other candidates of either party have any record like that. In fact, the Democratic Party, all four candidates, none of them have ever been in a federal courtroom. And they want to deal with Donald Trump? How are you going to deal with Donald Trump without the experience of being a practiced federal litigator? So there is an alternative for New Yorkers. I am on the ballot in November. I intend to run a vigorous campaign, and I'm delighted to be back here in Yonkers. These Yonkers shows that there can be progress if resources are properly allocated. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate your attendance. And I mentioned that we have a full slate of candidates. Howie Hawkins is running for governor. Howie Hawkins is a champion of people throughout our state. And we have other candidates who are ready and willing to serve. Jen Elliott is a candidate for lieutenant governor, a teacher, a leader in education in New York City. She was going to be here today, but she was delayed in West Virginia. But she strongly supports the end of Jim Crow in New York, as do I. Thank you.
Questions?
Yes, I
I
just have one question. As Attorney General, how would you solve the problem of low test scores, segregation, outside of settling this lawsuit?
New York has strict laws which prohibit racial segregation in schools. In the 1970s, a commissioner of education, Ewald Nyquist, enforced those laws. And there were significant changes in Newburgh, in Buffalo, and other cities in the state. He was stymied from enforcing the laws by the political establishment in other parts of the state. As Attorney General, I would say to the State Commissioner of Education, It's your responsibility to enforce the laws and to extirpate and end this high level of segregation. If you won't do it, I'll do it in your stead in the courts. We have that authority. We need to be putting practice to the words we preach. That's what my career is about. I'm not so interested in all the rhetoric. You said, come campaign time, everybody says the same thing. What you have to do is look at what they've done throughout their careers. And the fact is, you can talk about racial equality all you want, but you have to fight for it in the streets and you have to fight for it in the courts. And that's what I have done and intend to continue doing.
My question is, you'll be running against, likely, a woman of color. The Democratic nominee is a man of color.
Republican nominee.
Yeah, Republican. Yeah, and you're talking about racial equality. How does that wash?
Well, racial equality is not a concern for one group. It's a concern for every group. It's not a concern only for people of color. It's a concern for Caucasian people. It's a concern across the board. To produce an equal society, you don't need leaders of a particular color. What you need are leaders who have a track record advocating for issues. So they'll be able to address the public. The Republican candidate, who I don't know if anybody knows his name, he'll be able to address the public and tell us what he's done as a debt collector in New York to promote racial equality. Miss James, if she's the candidate, will have that opportunity. You don't get to that space by electing people of a certain race, though. You get there by electing people who have a shared and demonstrated commitment and who've shown that in their action. So people can speak for themselves. Voters will make their mind up about who it is has that commitment over their career.
My name is Daniela Liebling, and I am an opt-out parent from New York City, and I've worked closely with GLE, so I'd just like to point out a couple of things. And it's interesting that you are talking about the test and the test scores. And as a person who has had their child opt out of the test since 3rd grade, my son is now going into 8th grade, I just wanted to ask you about the tests themselves, which have, I understand the disparity is clear, right? And the tests they claim that the tests tell us that there's disparity, but the tests don't tell us that the tests do tell us that there's disparity, but the tests themselves aren't an accurate reflection of the children and what they know. And in fact, it's been shown that the tests are made to specifically for test prep. So the children who have the privilege of having test prep do well, and the children who don't have any test prep do poorly, and then all of the curriculum becomes about test prep and not about real education. So the tests are not...
Well, that's an important point you just made. The state education department does school-by-school surveys. They don't just do testing of the sort we're talking about. And in the surveys, they send a team of educators into schools. And when you read what they have written about schools in Yonkers, school by school, the most serious thing they say over and over again is there's not high-level, rigorous thinking being taught for young people. So I entirely agree with that, and I think that is part of what's at the root of this testing disparity. However, the disparity is important. Even if you reject the instruments as I do, I've fought against invalid tests. I think these tests are likely not valid. However, they still depict to me very significantly the gaps and the profound undereducation and miseducation in the state. And I think they are useful in pointing that out, whatever their limitations are.
And that they're made to charter schools. They're made to close schools.
And that's one of the other things the Attorney General needs to deal with. The charter school movement, the lies that have been told by propagators of the charter school movement, the fact they've lied, and no one's held them accountable.
Exactly.
Fraud on the people.
Thank you.
Another question.
You were able to secure $300 million for the city of Yonkers, and that's an incredible achievement. Will you be able to do a similar thing for the rest of the state and the big cities?
Well, I'll have much more as leverage as Attorney General to go to the legislature and to say to the legislature, we have indefensible positions here, and you need to rearrange the funding mechanisms and ensure redress. It's not just going forward, because these school districts have been underfunded now for literally generations. And the reason we got $300 million in Yonkers was to deal with the vestiges, the remnants, the impacts of that underfunding. We have the same exact argument around the state. So yes, I think we can, and we have a powerful argument. But it's time the Attorney General is on the side of the people. The problem is the Attorney General, in a knee-jerk way, defends agencies. That's the wrong approach. You have to defend the rule of law as Attorney General. The agencies are often on the wrong side of the law. When I stopped the battery test, which was stymieing promotional opportunities. But we determined 4,700 minorities who worked in state government who were seeking promotion and were not getting promotion. When I stopped that, okay, what did we do? We got rid of the battery exam and we replaced it with a fair promotional system. But we also had to redress, and we got $45 million to do it, the life experiences of people who hadn't been able to get promoted. So these are complex subjects, but what I will not do is defend a discriminatory test. And if the testing instruments used in New York are not valid, that has to be determined. And they have to be changed. We shouldn't be relying on tests like that. Whatever they show us, they have to be valid. Okay. Correct. All right. Well, I thank everybody for coming. Appreciate it. And we'll be continuing our campaign, and we appreciate everybody's support.
We'll go through the motions.